What's going on, YouTube? This is SG1 Sports, and you're watching our SEC football channel.
We talk Florida football with Jackie Franchuli on a regular basis. You can join her and her coverage of Florida football right on Gators territory on the Rivals platform for Florida athletics. Jackie, how you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you doing, Mark?
I'm doing just fine. You have had your stay at SEC Media Days, now making yourself your way back home.
Yes, I am. I'm like I told you, I'm somewhere in Alabama. Don't ask me where, but I'm somewhere in Alabama.
So I have, in particular, I remember on a dreary fall weekend, I think it was, or maybe in the middle of the winter when there was just rain coming down in buckets, driving from, at the time I was living in Mississippi, making my way to a friend's house in Florida. Yes, I can relate to driving in the middle of the night for me at the time, and then back during the middle of the day on the return trip somewhere in Alabama and having no idea where I was, driving through a bunch of windy roads through Alabama. All right, well, Florida, of course, hit the podium, and Dan Mullen, of course, now this is old news, but it was brought up again that he made a big splash at Media Days when he was at Mississippi State for his shoe attire, and kind of introduced maybe being one of the forerunners of wearing the tennis shoes with the suit. So I don't know if you had a chance to glance down and check out the sneaker attire for this year.
Yeah, he had on his Jordans. He once again was showing off his shoe game. He had a pretty strong shoe game at the event. I think this is the fun part of him, being part of a Jordan school, is he gets to do that. And obviously that helps so much of recruiting trail. I know a lot of people said it's just shoes, but it really does help with the kids, and just getting him to get some hype around the recruiting trail, around the kids, to kind of talk to them about it. So yeah, he was styling it.
Was there anything in particular that he had to say that was kind of out of bounds in regards to not the typical coach speak that wasn't necessarily expected? What were some of the themes that you caught from Coach Dan Mullen?
Yeah, so Dan Mullen was able to speak with the local media before he head to the main podium and, kind of venture to the SC Network and CBS. And one of the things, we discussed was, the attrition that Florida suffered during the offseason. Anyone who's following the Gators has noticed that they lost a lot of guys from the 2019 class, including two for transfer, Jalen Jones and Chris Steele. They also had two guys not qualify in DeJuan Black and Diaby Hammond. Both of those guys are going to JUCO now. So, that was one of the things we asked was, obviously he mentioned that, the transfers weren't expected, but the staff was not surprised when it came to Black and Hammond, because those are the guys that they knew they needed to work in the classroom. And to be fair, those guys did try to. Their problem is when you kind of get behind in your freshman and sophomore years, you got to really put the effort in junior, senior years, and sometimes it's just too late. So Mullen said that wasn't entirely unexpected when it came to those guys. But right now they're also waiting to kind of confirm on what's kind of going on with two other of their signees as far as academically. They're waiting to see if both R.J. Henderson and Deontay Marks are able to enroll. The expectation is they're going to enroll in the fall, and then they're able to kind of come in and practice early. This is part of the new NCAA rules that allows these players to come in early and practice, even though they haven't enrolled in classes yet. So the expectation is that they'll be coming in the next few weeks and then be able to practice, but only enroll in classes in the fall. And Mullen was just updating us, and they're still waiting on the paperwork for the NCAA. They're still trying to see if they will be qualified. I know there's a lot of stuff saying that they look like they're qualified, but until the NCAA says you're good to go, they're not good to go. So that's what they're waiting on, the final word when it comes to them. The other guy that they're waiting word is Wardrick Wilson. Now, he is NCAA qualified. Academically, he is good to go, but Florida is waiting on his visa. Now, Wilson is originally from the Bahamas, and he's been So he's right now currently waiting for his student visa to be accepted. There has been some paperwork issues there and some legalities that they're dealing with. And that one is something that Florida did not expect. And Mullen did admit that when he was talking to the media. So now we're just waiting for the final verdict when it comes to the student visa, when it comes to Wardrick Wilson, if he will actually make it into the class. So obviously, after hearing all that, one of the questions asked was, are you okay with taking these risks moving forward? And Mullen was pretty straightforward. He said, I will continue taking risks on kids that want to be Gators. He said that during his tenure at Mississippi State, he said that, he did take a lot of JUCO players and a lot of prep school kids. So implying that, just because Black and Hammond are going JUCO, that doesn't mean they're going to stop recruiting these kids. And that's something that we kind of been hearing. Black said that he'll be at Florida in 2 years, which is when he expects to be on track. And that's something that we can see that, Mullen is saying, yes, we do expect, to recruit guys that go to the JUCO route or into the prep school route. So he doesn't seem to be too fazed by what's going on as far as that. So we'll probably still expect Florida to take a few risks on the recruiting trail, depending on who they want. But it is kind of scary when you look at the scholarship numbers right now to see they're at below the 85 maximum allotment for the NCAA. At the last count, I believe they're around 78. That was not confirmed by Mullen when we asked him. He said he wasn't sure. But when we broke down the scholarship breakdown, that's the number it seems like they are. So they do have a lot of spots open. So he said he is, open to maybe a grad transfer route. So yes, that's something that we'll be following moving forward.
Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, with Jackie Franchuli from Gators territory, making her way back from SEC Football Media Days. Florida hitting the platform on Monday. You made a statement about Dan Mullen's shoe game being very strong. LaMichael Pirine's verbal game, his vocal game, very strong. I don't know that I've heard a player in all the years of media days, we're looking at probably at least 25, that has stuck it to the fan base like LaMichael Pirine did yesterday. I was a bit taken back by these comments. They're very bold. They make for good conversation. Just talking about Florida football fans being the most bipolar ever. Everybody gets bashed when they lose. He said they're happy when we win, of course. They're not happy when we lose. Everybody gets bashed. The coaches, the equipment guys, the kickers, everybody. And LaMichael Pirine very out front about his thoughts about the way Florida fans tend to treat the players.
Well, to be fair, I think that's every single college football fan base.
Yes,
but yes, he did say that. He was asked about the basically this stemmed from a question about the locker rooms. Because obviously on Monday, Gators football did this whole thing where they unveiled the new locker rooms. But to kind of put the background on that, a week before, someone had tweeted out a picture of the locker rooms in the middle of the renovation. And it didn't look pretty. I know a lot of people who have been through home renovations know that the process is ugly.
Sure.
So it's not going to look pretty, but Florida was getting hammered on social media by rivals fans. Even Florida fans were saying that this is the reason why we can't sign a top class. This is the reason why is because our locker room is so bad, our facilities are so bad. This is when halfway through the renovation. So I think, and then that question goes back to like, hey, now all the fans love it, saying like, oh, this is the best locker room ever. And it's not even our real one because we're going to have a better locker room when the standalone facility. So I think Michael Pirine was saying like, okay, last week they hated the locker rooms and this week they love the locker rooms. And anyone who follows Gators Twitters can see that happens quite a lot. I follow social media quite closely, and again, it's all fan bases, but because obviously he's focusing on Gator Twitter, that's something that he sees a lot. It's the fluctuations like, oh, we just had a decommitment, we're the worst program in the world. Hey, we had a commitment, we're the best program in the world. Again, that's every single fan base does that. And to be fair to LaMichael Pirine too, he said, that happens, but we're still going to play for them. We're still going to entertain them. So I think that's lost in the message that he was doing. I think the last little part of the quote kind of gets left out, but that is what he said. He also says he likes to entertain the fans. He's doing it. He wants them to be happy at the same time. So I think social media, I know you said that this is something that you haven't heard from in the previous SEC media days. But to be fair, social media has turned into quite a beast the last few years.
Yeah.
So that's very different. You got players on Instagram stories where people can, if they do live Instagram, people are continuously interacting with you live. You've got Twitter that, the people are on their couches saying that you suck after, a bad rep. So things have certainly changed in the last few years. And I think that is something that as fans, as reporters, as players, we need to kind of look into it and be saying, like, how is this moving forward? Like, should we tone it down a bit? That's something that has changed in the game. And I know yesterday, for instance, when the SEC announced that they're adding the SEC officiating Twitter, I'm praying for that person behind that account, because I know after they said, hello, Twitter, be easy on us, all those plies were not very easy, and I can't imagine being them during the fall season. So just seeing how social media has changed things, you can understand why LaMichael Pirine was voicing that opinion.
Point number one, very well taken. Every fan base has its portion of fans that are unreasonable and ridiculous and out of line. So I was not taking a stab at Florida fans. I was more taken back by the comments that LaMichael Pirine made. The other thing I appreciate, Jackie, is obviously you placed it into context in regards to what the setup was for the questions, what had happened previously, and then the follow-up of what other things were stated by LaMichael concerning the fan base and the situation and the locker room pictures that were sent out and the response to those. So that very much puts it into context, and that's great to have you do just that. And again, every fan base, I love when I hear this fan base is ridiculous, that fan base, they're all ridiculous in segments. And then there are reasonable fans that understand it's a game and they're kids and we just enjoy it. And sure, it's competitive and we want to win, but it's just a game and let's lead our lives. All well stated. Jackie Franchuli from Gators Territory on the Rivals platform, breaking down what Florida had to say at SEC Football Media Days on Monday. Much of that had to do with Feleipe Franks. He's, of course, the leader of this team who took, from a statistical standpoint, remarkable progress in the 2018 season. So certainly you sound like you were impressed with the way he represented Florida football, the offense, himself, and just the confidence that he exuded in being a leader that had to be a spokesman for the program.
Yeah, I think he was actually one of the most impressive speakers at the event. I think a lot of us in the local media were very happy to have him there, and I think a lot of the national writers were very happy to have him there. I think Pat Ford was one of the guys who singled him out as one of the players he was happiest to talk to. And it just shows the progress that he's made over the course of the last few years, especially the last few months, and how he handles the media. 2 years ago, even, last season at times, he seemed a little defensive, a little standoffish with the media. It looked like, every time we asked him a question, he was being put in the corner. That was not the case, and he was literally put in the corner this time where we were doing interviews with local media. He literally stood in the corner, and he seemed the most at ease I've ever seen him. He was joking with us. One of the reporters, Edgar Thompson from the Orlando Sentinel, and him were joking back and forth. He even, made a comment about Edgar's attire and saying he looked very spiffy at the event. So that was very different Franks that I've seen in the past. I think he was a guy that was comfortable in his own skin. He was a guy that was there. He knew he was representing the program. He was a guy that needed to show that he has become a leader to his maturity. And it looked like he was just having fun. And I think that was something that was missing. I know we talked a lot about his physical attributes and what he has done and how he has changed his game. And, of course, he needs to continue to show that progress. He needs to continue working on his accuracy. That is the next step in his development. But just seeing the maturity that he has developed and the mental changes that he has done, that also is a big factor in how you can find success. Because if mentally you're going backwards, no matter how physically you have improved, mentally you're going to hit a wall. So that was nice to see that he was just enjoying himself. And I think all the players around him also noticed that. LaMichael Pirine said he can see a Franks that's more confident to go up to you and say, you're doing it wrong. You need to do it this way. And then that player respect that he's saying that and respect his opinion. That's not something that happened maybe a year or two ago. That wasn't happening. Now players are listening to him, and that's a big deal. So now players are going to him, and he's he has the team. That's Mullen's guy, and the players know it.
Unfortunately, we're not going to see Dan Mullen trade in his sneaker game for baseball cleats to stand in the batter's box against Feleipe Franks, who was, of course, drafted by the Boston Red Sox as a pitcher.
No, that was an interesting back and forth. So we got Franks was drafted by the Red Sox, and Mullen joked that although he admitted Franks has an arm, he can throw probably, I think he said, around 94, 95 miles per hour ball. But he said he wouldn't want to be catching or even be in the batter's box because he wasn't very accurate. Because he sees him throw the football. And then Franks quickly, when we asked him that, when we had him there available for us, he quickly answered saying that of course he doesn't want to go up to bat with me because he's just going to strike out. So it was a good back and forth. And again, it goes back to that Franks is finally having fun at this thing. He's not just worried about what am I going to say? Well, how am I going to get into trouble with what I'm going to say? Well, what trap are you laying in front of me? So that was fun to see that back and forth between both of them.
Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, talking Florida football with Jackie Franchuli from Gators territory on the Rivals platform. And lastly, of course, we lean on Jackie very heavily on the recruiting front in particular, and another big weekend coming up with Friday Night Lights.
Yeah, it's certainly going to be a very big week this next week for Florida. They start practice, and they have Friday Night Lights on July 26th. Obviously, they start practice a little bit earlier because the Miami game is a week earlier. So, but to have Friday Night Lights there as well, it's a big recruiting event every year. They're expected to have a lot of their commitments on campus, which is great. You always want to have those commitments on campus when you're hosting a recruiting event like this, because although the coaches will be there to recruit, so will be those commitments. Those are you guys that you want in your ears. And to do that class has made an effort to recruit. Actually talking to some of those guys like Anthony Richardson, they even joked with me that they kind of talk together in their group messages, and they have certain guys that they recruit. And sometimes they even have areas that they recruit. I was actually joking with Richardson saying, what, do you guys have like a recruiting office? Like, what's going on? You guys are more organized than some coaching staffs that we know about. But yeah, they are really, really into this recruiting for Florida. And so that's going to be good for them to have those guys. But they also have, targets like 4-star offensive tackle Marcus Dummerville. He's one of the a big target that will be on campus. This will be his first Florida visit. So obviously the offensive line is something that they're focused on in the next few classes, and they really want to try to balance out that scholarship breakdown for each class. So having him on campus is great. John Hevesy likes him. Dan Mullen likes him. So that's a good first step if you get him on campus. This is the first visit, and you want to make sure it's a great first visit.
Jackie, you always help us out. Hopefully this time we've helped you out to maybe just pass a little bit of time as you drive through the back roads of Alabama to get home from SEC football media days.
Yes, you certainly did. I still have no idea where I am, but it certainly did help.
Hopefully the GPS is connected and working, and you'll make it home safely. Thank you so much, Jackie, for taking the time. This is great, and we will talk to you soon.
Thanks, Mark, for having me.
Thank you for watching this video. If you're an SEC football fan, please subscribe to the channel. Leave us your thoughts down in the comments below. And for the latest in SEC football, keep it right here.